With me today is a very special guest from the state of Tennessee, Senator Marsha Blackburn. Senator, good to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Happy to join you. Thank you.
All right, Senator, I don't need to tell anybody watching this interview today that there's a lot going on in our country. And I want to dive into some of the meatier topics, especially stuff that relates to what you're doing in the United States Senate. In the wake of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, there's been a push and a pull between actually different factions of the Republican Party and the conservative movement on how to handle the issue of abortion going forward. Some members of the Republican Party think it should be left to the states. Other members of the conservative movement think that abortion should be banned at the federal level. Where do you fall on this question?
Yes. Well, first of all, let me say we are thrilled with the decision that came from the Supreme Court for pro-lifers that have worked for decades to create a culture of life in this country. What a day and time of celebration. And we're pleased, just so pleased with that. Now, as you saw, this will head back to the states for the states to begin to decide how they're going to handle the issue. In Tennessee, I know they're already talking about what else they can do. And many of our state legislators are like me, Liz. They have worked for decades to support life and to take steps to support life. Now, at the federal level, we have, in times past, I have been the lead and I've co sponsored and continue to the Pain Capable bill. And that is certainly something that is out there. Of course, I think it's important to realize, too, the importance of the states as we move forward on protecting life.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, your Democratic colleague in the Senate, has in the past week or two has become very vocal about her agenda to ban crisis pregnancy centers, to completely disallow them from operating because, of course, they offer a pro-life alternative to abortion. This isn't just advocacy against these crisis pregnancy centers. She actually wants the government to shut them down. Do you have a response to her?
What we need to realize is that many times Planned Parenthood, even with the hundreds of millions of dollars that they receive and a net worth of $3 billion, they focus on abortion, not on providing the women's health services. Indeed, in a hearing we had in Judiciary Committee yesterday, we heard from someone who has a pregnancy center, and the Planned Parenthood clinic that is in close proximity to them actually refers women to them when women go in and decide they want to carry the child to term instead of having an abortion. So it is vital that these centers be open. It is vital that they be there to support these women during that time of pregnancy and childbirth. And as we have heard from so many of our pregnancy centers, they continue to mentor and find appropriate mentors for these young mothers so that they have the resources they need to assist in rearing that child.
And what can you do at the federal level in the Senate using the power of Congress to counter Elizabeth Warren's legal strategy here? Because it's not just a cultural battle that she's fighting. She's not just trying to demonize pregnancy centers in the eyes of the public. She's trying to create she sponsored a bill, actually, that would allow agencies of the federal government to either financially penalize, fine pregnancy centers, or shut them down if they potentially don't refer for abortions. What can you do to counter those legal strategies?
When it comes to things such as the bill that she has brought forward, when it comes to looking at how the federal government interacts with abortion, what we always have the power to do is use the purse. And keeping and having the Hyde Amendment language, Mexico City policy, legislation that would restrict the use of taxpayer funds to enforce any of these laws, and provisions that you hear those on the left pushing forward now. What we have to realize is that they are for taking the lives of these unborn babies.
Which is it's such a hard thing to understand. And by the way, to everyone watching this, if you want exclusive early access to interviews just like this one, you can join us at lizwheelershow.com/locals, and you will be the first to see interviews like this. Senator Blackburn, talk to me a little bit about the left's strategy, or this is an idea that they have floated to try to circumvent the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. They've suggested that in red states that have trigger laws that ban abortion, that they will open abortion clinics on federal property. What is your response to this, and how do we counter this?
This is one of those ideas that they have come up with making abortion available. And there again, what we can do is restrict this. What we also need to do is make certain that there are pro life legislators that are going to be serving in Congress, and make certain that the Democrats don't get 218 in the House or 60 in the Senate to move forward any of these provisions.
And looking ahead to this fight, I mean, when Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court, I think a lot of us in the pro-life movement said it's a victory. We should celebrate it. We should feel the joy of all the children who are going to, whose lives are going to be saved because of this. But this is not the end of the fight. The fight is just beginning. And so part of this fight is changing hearts and minds, but part of this fight is electing representatives at the state and at the federal level, even the presidency of the United States, who will be pro-life. So looking ahead to 2024, what are your thoughts? What is your analysis? What is your position on who the Republican nominee for president should be in 2024? Should it be Trump? His popularity is declining. Should it be someone else? And if so, who?
Liz, I have to tell you right now, I am focused on 2022. And you're spot on when you say in our state legislators, in our city councils, and our county commissions, it's going to be important that we have elected representatives that honor life at all stages. And being able to have them there to protect these unborn babies is going to be even more important. Now, as we move toward 2024, after we finish with these midterm elections, I have no idea of what is going to happen with that presidential race. You know, President Donald Trump enjoys a tremendous amount of support around the country. I run into people every single day who say, I miss President Donald Trump. And the more the Biden administration fumbles, the more you have inflation. Now it's north of 9%. The more you see the open border, the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the drugs, the fentanyl, and all of that is making its way to the streets in our communities. Then you have people that want a good, strong, solid leader. If President Trump is there running, I will be there with him every step of the way. If it is going to be someone else, if President Trump were to choose not to run, I am going to be there to support our nominee. And indeed, you're going to see people that are pro life who are going to show up. And here's one of the reasons I think they will. And it's why I think our voters are energized for this midterm, is because they now see that getting involved and working hard makes a difference. It took 5 decades, but we saw this culture of life push forward. We now have polling that shows that people across the country, they don't want the court, they don't want Congress, they want their elected representatives, those that are closest to them, to make the decisions about abortion regulation and restriction in their states and communities.
The culture war certainly matters, and amen to that. We certainly have seen that. What about the other side? I mean, the Democrats Democratic voters, I should say, don't seem to want Joe Biden to be the 2024 Democratic presidential nominee. Actually, only 7 in 10 Democrats approve of the job President Biden is doing. Many of them want a different candidate in 2024. Who do you think the Democrats will run?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not talking to the Democrats about that. The point is, it does not matter who they run. When you have the inflation where it is, when you've got that open border, drugs and crime, those are the issues that people are talking about. When people have seen what their children are being taught, and teachers that are more responsive to the teachers union than to their children in the classroom, this is something that causes people to say, hey, wait a minute, it's time for a change in leadership.
And that certainly seems to be the case. Last question for you. First Lady Jill Biden spoke in San Antonio, Texas this week, and she referred to Latinos. Actually, she called them Latinx, which they don't like to be called for obvious reasons, but she referred to them as breakfast tacos, which, if you saw the video, it's very funny in and of itself, but it's also very insulting. What's your response to Dr. Jill Biden?
That was just very sad. You know, one of the things that we should all do is show respect for our fellow man. And we're going to have a lot of diversity. Diversity can be a really good thing when you have different opinions and you have different races and genders. We all learn from one another. But for the First Lady to move forward and to make that statement, I understand the resistance that she was met with in making those statements. And I think it's important, as I said, let's respect one another.
And perhaps calling people breakfast tacos is not a sign of that respect. Senator Marsha Blackburn, thank you so much for being on the show. You have been a stalwart ally to the pro-life community, fighting for life at the federal level, and we deeply appreciate the work that you do.
Oh, listen, it is my honor. Thank you so much.
Of course, and we will talk to you soon. For all of you watching, if you want exclusive early access to interviews like this, just go to lizwheelershow.com/locals, and thank you for being with us today. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.